every cosmology begins with chaos. So here we've got this amazing image of like the chaos that first comes with the creation of the universe itself. See these dark plumes of gases, fire emerging out of the gases. And if you look very closely, you'll see that there are the figures of the zodiac in kind of combat or confrontation with one another. So if you look at the bottom of the screen, sort of in the middle, but to the left of the big dark plume, you'll see the centaur Sagittarius, and he's pointing his bow and arrow down at the twins of Gemini who are embracing. And, you know, those of you that are very familiar with astrology, Sagittarius and Gemini are a polarity, right? They're opposite signs. And we see this, the opposite signs all contained together in these kind of confrontations. In the upper right, you see the Taurus bull kind of locking horns with the Scorpion's pincers, right? So what we have here is a kind of chaotic, somewhat aggressive, definitely, you know, energetic creation of life. One of the ancient Greek poets, Hesiod, describes the chaos, the emergence of the cosmos from the Greek imagination this way. Verily, at the first, chaos came to be, but next, wide-bosomed earth, the ever-sure foundation of all, right? So chaos is first. Chaos, the void from which the universe is born, originally meant in Greek, it yawns, right? So chaos means it yawns, the vast, open, empty mouth of the cosmos. And only later, when the four elements come into existence, does chaos come to mean turmoil and confusion, because then there is multiplicity. So this is where alchemy enters. Chaos is what one encounters when studying alchemy. And I imagine many of you know that. Like, there are no fixed standard definitions of anything. There is no definite order of processes, and each alchemist describes things in their unique, idiosyncratic way. So in the simplest sense, how I would define alchemy is a sacred work in search of the supreme value. And the supreme value has been variously symbolized as alchemical gold, the philosopher's stone, or the elixir of life. Now, alchemy has always had two faces. There's the face that deals with the transformation of matter in the laboratory, which dealt on the one hand with concrete material chemical processes. And on the other hand, it is about psychological and spiritual processes of transformation that were projected and contained both consciously and unconsciously upon the materials that the alchemists were working with. And the alchemical work begins with finding the prima materia, which is sometimes called the massa confusa, and then subjecting it to a series of elemental operations that will eventually turn it into the philosopher's stone, the great incorruptible treasure or miraculous substance. Now, prima materia means first matter. That is primary stuff, first stuff. And metaphorically, it is we who are prima materia. And the psychological development, deepening, or evolution of consciousness is the alchemical work. The Jungian analyst and writer Edward Edinger, which some of you, who some of you might be familiar with, he wrote that the urge to consciousness exists with nature, with the unconscious psyche, and an ego is needed to fully realize that natural urge. It is required that the individual cooperate deliberately in the task of creating consciousness. Now, in Jungian and archetypal psychology, alchemy depicts the transformation of consciousness and has to do with the nature of psychic life. So the quest for the elixir or the gold is a search for inner treasure, what Hellman calls soul making, or Jung would call individuation, right? And a connection to the greater self. Now, so another kind of piece here. For the archaic Greek philosopher Heraclitus, the nature of the world is flux, ever changing. The cosmos is continually creating new combinations of ancient forms. Therefore, we must begin with rudiments, like first principles, to begin to make order. And to get there, we have to turn back along the path of epistrophe, which means turning or looking back to the mythopoetic or imaginal background, because this helps make order of the massa confusa of psychological life, psychic phenomena. So, Hellman, who drew directly off from Jung, always had this kind of mantra. And Hellman would say, stick to the image, like stay with what presents itself. And then in terms of alchemy, he goes on to say, stick to the image, to the colors, the chemicals, the vessels, the fire, images of the sensate imagination as it presents states of soul.